Hi everyone, at the Rejuvenator team in Vick. Big shout out to you guys and thank you for selecting me. So these are the Jordan 1 Breads band, the actual bands from 2011. These shoes are extremely special to me. Now because of a mistake in the printing on the inside of the shoe, these shoes were then decided to be released only in outlets. So these shoes are very special. They were daily beaters ever since I got them. I haven't been wearing them mainly because the shoe, as you can tell, has aged quite a bit. When I do wear them now, I can tell that the entire air unit on the inside of the sole has all crumbled. So the shoe is constantly filled with crumbled dust. Essentially, every time I walk as well, I can feel the crumbles within the sole. I would love for these to be restored once again so I can wear them again. Big shout out to the Rejuvenator team for all the support and all the content you guys put out. Thank you.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to this episode of Restorations with Vic. For today's project, we got one of my favorite shoes to ever come out, the Band Jordan 1s with the X on the back. But as you can see, these need work. As you guys know, I've been looking for rare, cool restorations that I'd never worked on before, and this is one of them. Off the rip, I can tell this shoe's been stored in terrible climate conditions. The leather is very stiff, but the dead giveaway is the rubber outsoles. It's on the harder side. It's not as flexible as it once was. It's more on the plastic, slippery side. We gotta fix that. On the inside, all the polyurethane is completely deteriorated. Check this out. Same thing with the air units, just a piece of plastic remaining. And for the uppers, the leather's supposed to be a lot more softer. As is right now, it's pretty stiff. With a little bit of solution and mink oil, we should be able to fix that later on. To start, let's get these ready for some new soles. We got a lot of work ahead of us, so let's get started. First things first, we're gonna take out the laces and insoles on both sneakers. If you guys don't know about the Band 1s, they came out back in 2011 and it's a special shoe. All around the sneaker, there's some cool hidden details. On the lace tips, on one of them it says imagine, on the other one it says if with a question mark. Everybody knows about the X on the back, that's the biggest factor on the sneaker. On the sock liner, there's a bunch of red and white X's all around. On the side of the sock liner, it has a date 10/18/85. That's the date that this shoe was created. On the back of the Nike tongue tag, it says imagine if as well. The insole is pretty sick as well. You have a giant X, and it says, on October 18th, 1985, they were thrown out of the game. Cool insole, cool details all around the sneaker. The shoe was a limited release back in 2011, and nowadays they go for a lot of money, but not in this condition. Let's take the laces and insoles out so we can start deconstruction. The reason why we're going to replace these outsoles is for a couple different reasons. The first one being the inside polyurethane is completely deteriorated. Same thing with the air units. There's no comfort at all. The rubber outsoles have hardened in some areas. That's not supposed to happen. The shoe has minimal grip, so we're better off replacing the entire outsole with some donors. Super cheap on Nike, only costing about 100 and some bucks. It's a little bit of an investment, but it's worth it for these bands. First thing I gotta do with the blade, I'm gonna cut the stitching in between the upper and the midsole. I just gotta be very careful and not cut the upper. I'm not trying to save the thread, so we're just gonna chop it. Old soles are off, we don't need those anymore. We do gotta do a lot of prep work on the uppers, but we'll take care of that later. Now we're on to the donors. We're gonna take off all the thread from the midsole before we can pour some acetone inside the sneaker. Usually I grab an X-Acto knife and chop all the thread from the inside. However, I noticed this shoe on the inside has a red thread. I could use it for a future project. So I'm gonna carefully take it all out, and then, while I'm at it, with the blade, I'm gonna cut off these tongues, because you never know when I can use them. Next, we gotta melt the glue. For that, we're gonna be using some acetone. We're gonna pour it on the inside of the shoes, let it sit for a good 10 to 15 minutes. We'll come back and try to separate the uppers. So far so good. We got our new donor soles. Pouring acetone into the shoe, it weakened the glue, but it wasn't enough to pull the uppers off the soles nicely. So we had to use a steamer. We put it inside the shoe for a good 5 to 10 minutes. After that, the upper came off like butter. We still have to remove all the old glue, but we'll take care of that later. We're back onto the uppers. To get a great quality glue job, we gotta remove all the old glue off the soles and uppers. As you can see on this one, I removed all the old glue using the skiving method. This one's still untouched. For this, we're gonna be using a sharp blade. All we wanna do is remove that top layer of material that has the glue. Skiving is complete. Now we do have some polyurethane residue on the bottom board that's gonna get in the way. Real quick, we're gonna heat it up to melting point, and then we're gonna scrape it off. Onto the Dremel. In a bit, we're gonna go outside so we don't make a mess in here. We're gonna be using a 400 grit sanding bit to go back on the areas that I skived to roughen up the leather. This is gonna help with adhesion onto the rubber outsoles. While we're out there, we still have to remove all the old glue from the outsoles. So for that part, we're gonna be using a metal drill bit. You wanna go over it very lightly so you don't cause any damage to the rubber. All done with the Dremel, we got all that glue off. Let's go back inside and finish it up with some acetone. Prep work is complete, now we're on to the glue. Real quick, one thing I had to do off camera was cut the bottom boards off with a blade. Really easy to do. I don't always do this for my re-glues, but sometimes it makes life a lot easier. One thing I noticed with these uppers and these new donors, the uppers were sitting a bit too high where it's not gonna line up flushly. An easy way to fix that is to cut the bottom boards off. All we're gonna do is lay down the glue like normal. Then when the time is right and this upper is glued onto the midsole, we'll go in and lay this piece down. Let's go to the next studio and lay down some glue. Got all the glue laid down on all 6 parts. I laid down the first coat yesterday, let it dry overnight. This morning, I laid down a second coat. That's something I like to do with all my re-glues. Lay down 2 coats to get a stronger bond. Everything's fully cured. We're gonna be applying some heat to stick everything together. We'll start with the uppers, then the soles, and then we'll finish it off with the bottom boards. Glue job is complete. Doing all the correct prep work, applying the right amount of glue and the right amount of heat is what makes a good quality glue job. And we still have to go in and apply the stitching onto the soles. We got some white thread and a sewing gauze. We're gonna be using 2 pieces for each shoe. First, I'm gonna stick a piece of thread into the shoe. Then with the other piece, we'll tie it together and then we'll go from there. When it comes to stitching on your midsoles, it's a repetitive process using 2 pieces of thread. You start with the outside, you stick it in. You wanna give yourself some slack with the thread on this side. Then once you're inside on the needle, you'll have the thread on both sides. You wanna hold on to the one that's closest to you and then pull the sewing all out. Then with the inside thread, you loop it into the outside thread and then pull your thread out. Stitching is complete on the right one, everything looks good. Now we're on to the second, but with some editing magic. All done with the stitching, we're done with that part of this restoration. Now we gotta take care of the uppers. Like I mentioned before, the shoe was on the stiffer side. The leather really needs to be reconditioned. We wanna get it back to its original soft texture. Luckily, our Rejuvenator solution has natural oils that can take care of that. Really all I wanna do is give the shoe a nice pass over all around, pat it down dry. I don't wanna oversaturate the red leather because it can discolor it or cause fading. Luckily for me, the insoles aren't too bad, so for this, we're gonna be using a medium bristle brush. Done with the insoles, now we're on to the laces. Real quick, we're just gonna scrub them down using the leftover water and solution. Everything's nice and clean, we just gotta let it dry so we can come back and recondition the uppers with some ink oil. The uppers look so much better now in person. The leather has a nice sheen to it. It's softer. That's thanks to the natural oils in our solution, but we're not done yet. Next, we're gonna be using our Rejuvenator mink oil. We wanna spray a nice heavy coat all around the shoes. We want it to absorb into the leather. This is also gonna help recondition the leather and keep it healthy for years to come. We'll spray a nice even coat all around, let it sit for a couple hours so it can absorb into the leather. After that, whatever that's left, we'll brush it in. It's been a couple hours, the leather really absorbed that mink oil. In some areas, there's some excess remaining. We're gonna grab our horsehair brush so we can brush it in all around. As much as I like the band ones because of the great quality materials and details all around the sneakers and box, what's crazy about these is they're all B grades that were released in Nike factory stores. This pair specifically has a lot of crazy flaws. We'll get into that in just a bit. First, let's lace them up. All right, let's start with the most noticeable thing, the swooshes. On this one, the stitching's good. And right about here, it completely goes off the rails onto the black leather, then it comes back onto the swoosh. That's horrible. On this side, part of the swoosh is kind of missing. You have the stitching nice and clean, but underneath, there's no leather at all. This might be hard to tell on camera, but the stitching is pretty wonky. Everything's nice and consistent, but right around here, there's some big jumps where it skips 2 or 3 stitches and you have one big stitch line. There's one right here and one right there. Pretty awful. If you look at the tongue tag here, the Nike Air is way too low, where the back tag is showing in the front. That's supposed to be in the back. On the left shoe, same thing with the tongue tag. It's sitting way too low. Over here in the tongue, there's some weird stitching going on. There's a perfect triangle. That shouldn't be there. There should be 2 clean lines on the bottom, 1 clean line on top with nothing in the middle. On the toe box, for the most part, there's some nice holes. Except for this one, the hole isn't fully punched. Those are just a few of the noticeable flaws on the specific pair. All the pairs are completely different. Some are better than others. At the end of the day, they're all B grades. A couple more observations about the specific release. All the panels, including the black and red, except for the swooshes, on the edges, the leather's rolled over. I think that's a cool detail. The collars on the specific shoe are very short compared to what we have now. Not a big fan of it. The shoe is technically a high top. However, it's not really on the high side, nor is it on the mid. It's kind of in between. It's its own unique shape. All right, YouTube, that's gonna bring us to an end on this full restoration of the 2011 Band Jordan 1s. A lot of work went into them, starting with replacing these dusty old outsoles. As you can see on the insides, the polyurethane comfort was completely gone. Same thing with the air units. The rubber outsole starting to stiffen up. This piece was no good. We bought some brand new Donor Jordan 1s in the exact same color and size, did a bunch of prep work on the soles and the uppers before we were able to glue them down. We did all the correct steps when it came to prep work. We shaved off all the glue from the uppers, removed the glue from the soles, laid down some fresh new glue, applied the right amount of heat, and then lined up everything nicely. This couldn't have gone any better. The soles look great and matches the uppers nicely. As far as the uppers go, they weren't really that bad. The biggest flaw was that these were stored incorrectly, meaning that the leather was on the stiffer side. So after using a Rejuvenator solution, giving it a good scrub, and loosened up the leather, we finished it off using some mink oil, sprayed it all around, and that really did the trick. It's back to its buttery soft texture. It's not as stiff. Plus, it's gonna be reconditioned and healthy for years to come, thanks to our Rejuvenator solution and our mink oil. You can find all that stuff at rejuvenator.com. Use my promo code down below to save some money. Once again, even though these are B grades, it's one of my favorite shoes to ever come out. The quality and the details are all there. Let me know down below which one's your favorite Jordan 1 bread to ever come out. Also, you guys, I'm still looking for restorations to do on the channel. Hit us at the email down below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Vic Almighty. Catch you guys next Monday. See you guys.